Okay, great. All right, Nicole, will you tell us all about yourself and your practice
Sure.
and why this topic is so important to your firm?
Okay, yeah. So, hi, ladies. Thank you, Madeline, for inviting me to speak to your community coaching call today. So, I'm Nicole Davis. I'm a CPA. We have a firm called Butler Davis. It's located right outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and we primarily work with independent pharmacies. So, I like to say that I am a wife of one, a mom of five, and a CPA to many. Let's see. We are. What else to know about me? I have words featured in Forbes, CNBC, and Swift Farmer the Future blog. I am on the AICPA Planning Engaged Conference Committee. And what else? Yeah, this topic is important to me because I think with niching, they always say that if you niche, you can realize you can charge more, right? There are a lot more benefits to niching than being a generalist. And I totally agree with that statement or thought process. So I have a short presentation or slides. It's mainly for me just to keep me on track because I can go off on a tangent, but I want it to be interactive. So stop me, ask questions. Hey, I'm very transparent. You can ask me anything and I'll tell you. But yeah, should we kick it off?
Yes,
All right,
absolutely.
let me share my screen. All right, can everyone see my screen?
I got it.
Perfect. All right, so it's finding and aligning your ideal niche, a roadmap to niche domination. We sort of went over who I am, my bio. So let's go into the agenda. So what we'll learn today is what is a niche, to niche or not to niche, when and how to niche, and how to achieve niche domination. So what is a niche? Well, my story before we go into what is a niche. So when I started my firm, I didn't niche. I was pretty much just focused on getting my first paying client. So probably a year later, one of my college friends reached out and he had a pharmacy. He asked me to do the bookkeeping for his pharmacy. Now, I didn't know anything about pharmacy accounting. I didn't know anything about the industry. You know the saying, fake it till you make it. I totally faked it until I made it. So eventually he started referring me more as his friends. They started referring me more as their friends, and they were all pharmacy owners. And then we grew into being the industry expert in pharmacies. So pharmacy is a very specialized industry. There's one other firm that is widely known for pharmacies. So we're just trying to get a sliver of that market. And we've done a good job so far of doing that. So what is a niche? It's pretty much a specialized market or a segment. It's a portion of a whole. So restaurants are great examples of niches because they may have a certain type of cuisine. You have Italian restaurants, you have Chinese, sushi houses, pizza houses. So restaurants are a great example of niche businesses. So I like referring to restaurants. And that is pretty much how I developed my pharmacy accounting, was by studying the restaurant industry and how they did their bookkeeping and accounting. So types of niches. So there are two primary types of niches. There are vertical niches, and then there are horizontal niches. And we're going to talk about like what each of those are, and then examples so you can have an idea of how to, or what the differences are. Any questions? I talk really fast too. So if I'm talking too fast, say slow down, Nicole. All right.
I wanted to ask as we dive in, and feel free to share in the chat as well as we go. Just reminder, like stop Nicole if you have questions or feedback. And I'm also curious, to know who's niching and who isn't so far in this group. So feel free to share that in the chat too.
Yes. Yes. Okay, great. Yes, I want to know who's niching as well. And if you haven't found a niche or if you're changing niches, let me know that too. Okay. All right. So our vertical niche. So a vertical niche is a market in which vendors offers goods and services specific to an industry, trade, profession, or other group of customers with specialized needs. And there are micro niches. These are smaller segments of a vertical niche. So for instance, a vertical niche could be bookkeeping for attorneys. A micro niche would be bookkeeping for family law attorneys. Another example is bookkeeping for e-commerce. A micro niche would be bookkeeping for Shopify sellers. So you're drilling down even deeper into a vertical niche when you decide to micro niche. And then we have horizontal niches. So a lot of people don't really, I say, focus on the horizontal niche, because when you think of niches, you're thinking a specialized industry, a group, or a segment. But there's also horizontal niches in that the product or service meets a need of a variety of buyers across different sectors. So for instance, let's say you wanted to niche where you just want to work with stay-at-home moms. So that is a horizontal niche because they can work in a variety of different businesses or side hustles. Another example is, say you just want to work with small businesses that have less than 500,000 in revenue, because you want to keep your bookkeeping simple and you don't want to work with bigger companies or companies with employees. You just want to work with a solopreneur. So those are considered horizontal niches. Is anybody here doing any type of horizontal niching?
Yeah, there's some great conversation in the chat, so I'm gonna call on folks.
Okay.
Shannon, will you go first? Talk about how you want to be a horizontal niche.
I predominantly worked in real estate development and investment industry for many years and hated it. My vision is to work with small business owners, the small business owners that I want to develop workshops for them to help them run their businesses. I tend to like sole props more than corporations. I wanted to work with artists too, lots of creative people, and help them manage their books, because I find that they are very disorganized. And so, yeah, I guess I'm kind of like that. To me, yeah, the horizontal, because I didn't know, I was like trying to figure out how I would be a niche or whatever. But this horizontal sounds like that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Awesome. Megan, will you share? I loved your comment about creatives.
Yeah. So my marketing is geared towards creatives, but how that gets defined is really creative. And it's really that I don't want people, and this goes into the horizontal niche too, I don't want people who are unengaged with their business activity and who are just kind of plopping everything all over the place and wanting to pay for someone to just take care of everything for them. Mm-hmm. The reality that I have found, which I know that this is not everybody's reality, right? But this is my reality, is that I can't charge people enough to really focus on them and taking care of every little thing within their accounting and their business management. I can't charge them enough to keep myself profitable and surviving and moving into being thriving without them and them getting the value that they need and want for the dollars that they want to spend. So I don't try to do that. I make sure that people are engaged and are willing to actively do things, and that they understand that if you don't provide me your information, I can't do anything for you. And so if you don't give it to me timely, your work is going to sit until I have a larger block of time, because we all know the reality is that most bookkeeping tasks, if the owner's actually doing something, takes an hour or two a month, maybe total at the most. But if they're not doing it regularly, then it builds up and it gets ugly fast. So I try to niche by keeping away from people who don't do things. Yeah. Unless they're aware that they haven't done it and there's a big old catch-up project and then we get them on rails.
Yeah. Awesome. Anyone else want to share? Thank you, Megan. Go for it, Cecily.
I'm already unmuted. Sorry about that. So I just got in the office. So we need, I always say niche, but niche. We niche in law firms, nonprofits, and then as it turns out, we're working in retail too, which I'm not sure, I guess is going to become a niche, but I'm conflicted about that. But anyway, that's where we're at.
Okay, cool.
All right. So why niche? So the benefits of a vertical niche are that you can focus on just one industry. You can make better use of your advertising dollars. You develop industry expertise, and then there are usually standardized processes across the niche where you don't have a lot of different things going on. Whereas on a horizontal niche, there are benefits to that as well. So you have a lower risk in case the bottom falls out. Like we all just went through the pandemic. And if you were in the restaurant industry or the hospitality industry, you pretty much had a very hard time keeping clients and keeping them, alive and thriving. You also have more diverse working issues. So if you don't like doing the same thing over and over, then you may not want to vertical niche, because you're pretty much going to be doing the same thing for the same client in the same industry over and over again. So you also have more issues to deal with. So if you like challenges, then definitely horizontal niching is probably a better fit for you. And also you have a diversity in vendors and suppliers. So for instance, pharmacies. So pharmacies have very specific drug vendors that they can buy from, and it's not a whole lot of them. So it's not like we can go out to some random vendor and find something like you can do in a horizontal niche, where you have a much broader pool of vendors and suppliers that you can buy from or purchase from.
One thing I want to share here or ask here, Nicole, is in your experience being more verticalized, does it lead to deeper consulting opportunities for you? Because the firms that I've worked with that are very verticalized have found over time that because they're able to do things like, pull a group of data from all their clients in that industry and things like that, they're able to do like a lot of deep consulting. So I think about like some of you know Chris Maxey, and he has a firm that's just in like high-end hospitality. And they've, you'd think that they would have really struggled this past year, and they did. They lost some clients, but because they were so specialized, they got like a lot of press on the firm. And now they're doing things like really deep consulting projects on how to better structure a restaurant based off of what happened in the pandemic and things like that. So I'm curious if you do more consulting work, would you say,
yes,
being verticalized? Yeah,
I would definitely say so, just because, like you said, once you become the industry expert, like you can definitely dig deeper into their issues because you understand them better. You have more time to understand them for the most part, right? You're not trying to be a generalist in a whole bunch of different industries. So for us, like during the pandemic, it was really tough for us as well, because we lost a bunch of pharmacies initially, and we started slowly building it back. But we were able to build them back because we understood the industry. We were able to consult with them on PPP and IDLE. For the most part, that was the same for a lot of businesses. But for pharmacies, what their gross profit eats up is very, very small. Like drug costs are 70 to 80% of their costs. So, and their profit margins are low. So we're able to consult with them. Okay, how can we be more profitable during a pandemic? Cash flow is a big issue. So being able to help them get that money, PPP, we understood their needs. And so that's what we targeted first, like getting cash in the business, because that would really hurt them if they didn't have the cash flow, because insurance, they rely on insurance payments. So they had to buy their drug costs, but they don't get paid 45 to 90 days later. So, yeah.
Cash flow must be a big thing you talk about then.
Yes, it's a huge, that's a huge issue for them, is cash flow. All right, so niche marketing. I want to dig a little deeper into niche marketing, because usually if you niche, you see a better return on your investment. So they say you can see up to a 241% return on an investment by narrowing down your niche and putting your marketing dollars where it matters. So for me, in pharmacies, a lot of people advertise on Facebook, Instagram, Google ads. Like I couldn't advertise on any of those platforms for pharmacies, because that's not what they hang out. So if I would have put money into those spaces, I would just be putting money in the trash, because they would never see anything that I'm putting out there. So I had asked my friend, I said, hey, where do pharmacies hang out? So you being able to like find where your target market is critically important. He was telling me they hang out in drug forums. Like they're always in drug forums on their drug website. So you want to market there where you can get their eyeballs. So that's when we started investing our money more into non-traditional, I guess, advertising spaces versus the ones that pretty much a lot of businesses use today. All right, so identifying your ideal niche. So I say if you haven't started a business or you're in the process of starting one, niche from day one, because it's a lot easier to niche than having to start getting clients that you may not necessarily want to serve later. And then once you get used to that income, it's kind of hard to let it go. Like you're going to make some hard decisions about, okay, do I want to release this group of clients to bring on niche clients. So I say start from day one, or you'll end up having to transform a firm you already have. Next, develop your ideal client profile. Even today, a lot of small businesses don't map out or create their customer avatar. Like, you should be able to sit down and say, okay, this is what I want to work with. What does that look like? What do they like? How do they dress? How do they speak? What technology platforms are they on? What motivates them? You want to be able to understand your customer or client idea profile like the back of your hand, right? And for me, pharmacy that's something I had to do for my pharmacies, because again, pharmacies, like most large businesses or corporate businesses, it was primarily dominated by white men. So however, my friend was Black. And so him coming to me being a Black pharmacy owner, he knew all the other minority pharmacy owners. So that's why they were coming to me as a minority. So my customer avatar was around a minority pharmacy owner, their age, what they like to do, how they like to spend their money, what was important to them. So understanding that is important. And the side effect of that was that eventually, as I became being known as the pharmacy industry expert, that I started getting those white pharmacy owners, because now they see another alternative than the traditional firms that they have worked with in the past. So I say, once you have that, you can start developing your processes and practices around that profile. And I put a link here. There's a great client profile on HubSpot that you can use to kind of start mapping it out. It has a bunch of questions that you can ask yourself. You just want to take some time to go through all those questions and answer them, and eventually you'll have your ideal client profile created. Now, let's say you've already have a practice and you're working with a number of different industries. And I started like that. I had home care agencies, attorneys, construction companies, service-based businesses. I had the gamut of different businesses. So I had to transfer my practice into a niche practice. And again, that started with just one client. And then having that one client refer people to me, and then having them refer people to me, until eventually the bulk of my practice was the niche practice. And then we eventually start shedding those clients that didn't fit that niche anymore. Now, I will say that our practice right now is split. Like, we're building back up our pharmacy practice, but we don't want to be, I guess, tied down to being a whole bunch of things to a whole bunch of different people. So we're very selective on who we do choose if they're not in that pharmacy niche.
Can I just ask a question here, Nicole, in terms of, because I think your experience is so common. Most firms I know don't start out with, a niche in mind, and then they go through the same process that you're describing, where they're shedding clients over time. How did you do that gracefully? How did you start to let those folks from the startup era kind of fall by the wayside?
That's a good question. All right, so I used what I guess it's called, what's the Marie Kondo method. I think of their name. If they don't bring me joy, they gotta go, right?
I love that so much.
It makes me so happy though. That's a great method.
So that's number one. That's like my top thing. If I feel like they're not gonna bring me joy, then I have to let them go. And I usually let them go by saying, if I definitely don't want to work with them, send them a nice disengagement letter, right? So just say, hey, it's not a fit anymore, bye-bye. Now, if I'm on the fence about them, like I say, they're not bad clients, but they really don't fit the niche, then I would usually raise their prices. Like, okay, I say, hey, I'm gonna double your price. Do you want to stay or not? Then usually that they either leave and I'm not mad, or they stay and I'm like, okay, they're not bad clients, but at least they're paying me because they don't fit my ideal client profile. So, and again, I think I want my firm to be about 60-40. I want 60% to be composed of the niche and about 40% to be composed of generalists. But again, the pandemic taught me a valuable lesson. It's great to niche, but you also want to diversify that risk in case something ever happened like that again. So And
So
you're not
you charge a premium for people to not be in your niche. You amaze me every day, I swear to God. I like it though.
because again, like I've developed standardized processes for these pharmacies. So the counting work is like clockwork, right? It gets done systematically. Whereas if I bring someone in who is not a part of that niche, like I have to develop
Makes sense.
a totally different process for them to close their books every month. So
Makes sense. I like it. I like it.
all right, so the good part, niche domination. The goal for you should be to have niche domination, and you want to have a niche domination strategy. So I outlined 8 steps to reach niche domination. And this is not like this is going to get done in a month or a few months. It could take a year or 2 years or even 5 years to actually dominate your niche. So that is the end goal. So of course, first you have to identify what you want your niche to be. Like I said, it could be a vertical niche, it could be a horizontal niche. Either way, you can be known for serving that specific type of subset of customers. You also want to identify their pain points. Like this is where you're going to get known for because you understand that niche's pain points. You also understand how to solve it. So for me in the pharmacy industry, their pain points were drug costs, inventory, and AR. Like that's the only thing they cared about. They didn't care about net income. They didn't care about AP. They didn't care about salaries. They were like, that's not our concern. So giving them financials was sort of the deliverable, but it's not what they really wanted. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to number 4. Invest in niche marketing. So we do have a landing page just for pharmacy. We have a program called the Farm Method, where we send our pharmacies to the landing page where they can learn about the Farm Method. And pretty much we outline how we work for pharmacies and how we, address their pain points. So you want to invest in a website, a niche website, ads, associations, and the marketing material. When I say associations, I mean, you want to go to where they're going. Like what are they members of? What associations are they joining? What organizations are they joining? Because you want to be in the room with them because that is your niche. So when I first started out, so I initially tried making attorneys my niche. I don't like working with attorneys, so that quickly changed. So I tried making attorneys my niche, and they have a state bar in downtown Atlanta. And I would go to it whenever they had an event at the state bar. I would be at that event with the attorneys. And I actually met quite a few who became clients later before I let them go through going to those types of events. And get this, it was a room full of attorneys. I was the only CPA. So of course they remember me and they reached out to me like, hey, I remember you. You was at this event. So you're the only one in the room. So it's a lot easier to make connections. And usually they like people that are going to help them because attorneys are horrible with money. So they appreciated having a CPA like be there and sort of market to them, even though it wasn't like overt marketing or any type of overt sales. So
I can totally attest to this. Nicole, like CPAs, or excuse me, attorneys are terrible with money. I learned how to use QuickBooks because I used to intern at my dad's law firm. And oh my gosh, that QuickBooks file was like, it was the most terrifying thing. But this piece about going to industry groups, so as many of you know, I used to work for Fathom, and we had a couple firms that were so smart that like specialized in like chiropractics or like very specific industries, and they would go and get a booth at like the industry conference for very little money, and they would just put up their details. And there was one firm that would use like Fathom's benchmarking tool to show a data set that they had of like all of their clients in that industry, and they would just be like, can your accountant do this? And they would be the only firm in the room, and it would pay for itself 10 or 20 times over because they would get tons and tons of clients. So I just want to second this point that Nicole has. And now like a lot of these things have moved online, and so the landed cost of participating is way less. So just want to encourage that.
Yep. So the more you invest in your niche marketing, the more you become the go-to brand for that niche. And again, that is the progression you want to make towards niche domination. So piggybacking off of what Madeline spoke about earlier, just now, choose key metrics for the niche group. So a dashboard or something like Fathom where it shows data points or data sets to where the things they care about, you can easily illustrate for them. So you want to be able to have something to where they say, hey, this is a specialized deliverable for my firm that we do for other pharmacies. And it shows you like what the drug costs are. So we're measuring, okay, drug costs. What are your drug costs each month? Like what percent of sales are you having for drug costs? Your inventory levels, like how fast are you turning inventory? How quickly are you collecting your AR from these insurance companies? Because again, these insurance companies are slow to pay. So they want to make sure, like, are they getting 45 days turnover? Are they waiting 90 days? Because if so, they usually can do things within the pharmacy to help with that cash flow. Because again, cash flow is a big issue. So you want to develop some key metrics just for that group that they care about. Again, they didn't care about net income, so we didn't show them the net income. They could care one less bit. They didn't care about the expenses, the total income, salary expenses that they were having to shell out, because again, that was a necessary cost. They didn't really care about that. They wanted things that would push their pharmacy forward to make sure like they could eat and live for the most part. Build a niche pharmacy or build a niche community. So this is something we have not done because again, our pharmacies aren't on Facebook. That's not where they congregate. And for the most part, pharmacists work a lot, right? They work 12-hour shifts, 10-hour shifts. So they're usually not hanging out in any type of social media platform. When they work, they go home, they rest, they get up, go back to work. So for us, building a niche community wasn't something we wanted to do or needed to do. But from other industries, definitely building a niche community will help establish yourself as the expert for that niche. Host webinars related to the niche. So this is something that we are doing with pharmacies because we're hosting webinars that speak to them. So you want to host webinars. Webinars are also a great way to get leads. So you can market them on social media. You can market them in your local, what is it called? The Chamber of Commerce. You can market them in your Chamber of Commerce events. So hosting webinars that will help solve some of their pain points. And then you offer some type of, offer at the end to get them to at least become a paying client of yours. So that way, when you're able to upsell them later, you can. Sponsor niche events. So every niche that I know of has some type of industry event, no matter what you are. Like one of my clients, so this is the client I have, who's not a niche fit, but he gets charged a premium. He's not a niche. So he has laundromats. So they just had a big conference for laundromats in California a few weeks ago. They have window washing events. They have, there's a conference for everything. So if you're able to be a sponsor at one of these events, this is another way to get your name out there as being the go-to brand for that niche. And then of course, eventually you want to be a paid speaker at these niche events. So that now you've gone from sponsor to being the face for the niche. And that way you're pretty much dominated the niche and become the go-to person. Any questions about it? That was a lot. Any questions about any of that?
Have you done any speaking engagements at these conferences?
No, I haven't. I'm not there yet. See, I'm working my next domination strategy still.
Gotcha.
So we're at 7 now. So we're starting to sponsor events. Yes. So for us in pharmacy, there's an association called the NCPA. I always get it confused. I think it's a CPA organization, but it's not. It's a Community Pharmacy Association. They have a big event every year where you can be a corporate sponsor, go there, meet different pharmacy owners, and they have smaller events throughout the year. So we actually started doing that right before COVID. And then everything happened and we just never attended the event. So now we're starting to pick that back up so that we can start sponsoring more of these events. Another good way you can start sponsoring these events is actually sponsor the podcasts that that are created for these events. So I didn't know that there were so many pharmacy podcasts until I went on the Apple Podcast app and seeing there were tons. So I had my admin reach out to them and say, hey, send us your pricing sheet, send us your advertising sheet so that we can start sponsoring some of those podcasts. And that's another way to get your name out there to dominate the niche.
Awesome.
Question. Hey everyone, Barbara Richardson here. regarding all these points, a lot of these are great. And, I've heard these ideas. My issue is implementing them, or even, kind of getting some of these ideas nailed down. Are you all doing this as practice owners? Are you doing this yourself in your practices, or have you found, someone, an external employee, contractor, marketing, someone to help you get this done? Because some of these items, they just live in perpetuity on my to-do list. Can't seem to get to them.
Anyone can answer, yeah, and I'll follow up.
Yeah, I would say, so I've had an assistant do like the research part. Like I had her come up with a list of different podcasts that I could present myself to, because I didn't know where they were at. So I had her come up with a list of them so that I could go out, because I don't want to just be a speaker or sponsor just anyone, right? I want it to at least be one that I like what they're talking about, how they talk. And so I started the process of like listening to different episodes on different podcasts to see if it would be one that I would want to be associated with first. But I did have somebody, I had the assistant do that part. I would say the niche and the pain, like the number one and the number two is probably yourself, but like the developing the marketing copy that goes with it, like your marketing message, but you can hire someone to do all the other stuff. And the Facebook community thing, like everybody has a community on Facebook, which is crazy, but it's one of those things where it's like everybody isn't, like I've never found any clients from Facebook, not one single day in 12 years. I gotten a client from Facebook. But trying to niche into interior design, they live on Instagram because they want to showcase all of their designs. And so I don't think, at least I haven't found yet, an online community for them. I have to go out into events and conferences and try to put on like speaking engagements and webinars. And I've been trying to do those. It's a lot to plan it. You definitely cannot do that part, like hosting webinars and all that by yourself. You definitely will need someone to help you like pull it off without a hitch, for sure.
I would agree with Sherelle in that I definitely utilized my VA to the max when it came to a lot of these tasks. Because again, in your business, your primary job is to produce sales and make sure everything else is functioning. Like if you're too deep in the weeds, then you don't have time to build the actual business. So like for identifying the niche, of course, and this is where it gets interesting, because even if you don't choose a niche you like, you can remember, like, you don't have to do the work. You can choose a niche that is very popular, or one that's, that kind of resonates overall with your direction of your firm, but you're not going to do any of the work. That's the goal, not to do any of the work, and just kind of build out processes so your team does the work and identifying the pain points. So we recently hired someone to come in and help us, further with some of these niche nomination strategies. But I called my friend and asked him, like, what are the pain points? Like, find someone that will speak to you candidly about their niche, if you know someone like that, because they're going to give you everything you need, and you don't have to come up with anything on your own. You don't have to figure it out. Like, that's the thing. I think a lot of times we get stuck trying to figure it out, and that could be a stumbling block for us. So yeah, find someone who knows this stuff and let them take it and run with it. That's my thing.
My marketing brain's gonna have to kick in here and say something. But I agree. I think, it is really important to lean on other people to help with this. And I love Nicole's suggestion of basically interviewing somebody or multiple people, to really firm up, because we may think we know, what those pain points are. We may think we know what is it that they're really after when they're seeking our services, but to validate those assumptions, and it can be really helpful when creating copywriting, because you can record a conversation with somebody in the industry and then use that to inform, writing, landing page copy that speaks directly to the things that come up in conversation. And so, Nicole shared that HubSpot link. There's so many good resources online that make it easy to kind of build out some of these materials too. But I think that when you get into, you know, a lot of where you're having to create more materials than just a landing page, it's good to really make sure you hire somebody to help, especially on the design side of things. I've seen so many firms who have invested tons and time and energy into materials that, you know, they might have the greatest program and the greatest service offering, but just because of the way that they look and feel, it's, you know, not designed in a way that really attracts people, and particularly like for Sherelle, like you're marketing to an industry that really cares about that aesthetic. And so you got to like be really on point for them. So that's another factor to just take into consideration, as well as like, you know, where are your strengths and where does it make sense to hire somebody to you know, do something for you, you know. And I will say there's a lot of talented creatives out there who will do this work and you know, make it something, Barbara, where it's not just living on your to-do list forever.
Mm-hmm. And usually affordable, right? Upwork usually has a lot of creators on there that are looking for work, part-time work. You can usually get a piece of this done without having to put someone on your payroll or having to hire someone that doesn't fit your budget. So, all right, good discussion. Anything else about the niche domination strategy? Oh, okay. So we're wrapping up. So, summary: determine if you want to have a vertical or horizontal niche. Create your ideal client profile. Understand the pain points and solve the pain points. And then, of course, look at ways you can make an impact in your niche industry. And I will close by saying, pick something and be the best at it. So, thank you. Or any questions anyone want to ask me about my niche or about my firm? I mean, feel free to ask.
I would like to know how it is that you're going to go from step 6 to step 7. Like, how are you preparing yourself to do speaking engagements? Are you getting training? I'm just.
Step 6 was host webinars related to the niche, and then to sponsor niche events. Okay, great question. All right, so I mean, I think the first 3 through 6 are kind of like interchangeable. Like you don't have to go in the exact order. You can kind of mix it up, match throughout. Like you can start hosting webinars as soon as you identify the pain points, because again, your goal is to get clients, and you want to make sure that they know that you have a solution for that pain point. So I would say do what feels right for you. Like you don't have to go in this exact order, but you want to be able to be consistent in what you're doing, because that's how you build traction, that's how you build following, and that's how you eventually dominate the niche.
Right, but I want to know how you are going to go to speaking engagements. Like what kind of training you. So yeah, like your experience.
So let's see. For me, so one is that I'm gonna sponsor like the big event they have every year. They usually have every October. So I'm going to start sponsoring that event, because again, you have to start making a name for yourself. They also have those smaller events to where you actually can present speaking topics or calls for paper, what they call calls for paper, to where you want to present topics that the pharmacy owners are interested in, right? And again, it doesn't have to be about bookkeeping. I think someone mentioned that, Sherelle mentioned that interior designers have pain points that aren't related to their books. So that's where you become an industry expert, in that you know what makes them tick. You know what, gets their, how their business runs. So you want to be able to address not just the financial pain points, but the pain points that they care about, right? Like for instance, the drug manufacturers and pharmacies. It's financially related, but it's also operational related, because if they can't get drugs, they can't operate. I mean, point blank period, they can't have a pharmacy. So being able to make sure they have inventory in stock, they can pay for the inventory, finding other vendors that can supply generics, because a lot of times the brand drugs are just costly and they can't afford it. So being able to have those vendors in pocket in case something happens. And I would say that several of my pharmacies ran into this situation where they got behind on a drug vendor payment, and that drug vendor cut them off. they're like, you don't pay us, you don't get drugs. And they have prescriptions to fill, right? So we have to go out and find alternative drug vendors. And usually it was the generic drugs that that fill that need. But yes, I'm planning to first start just going in and getting my name known in the industry as a whole by going and sponsoring their events first. I want them to say, hey, Nicole was at this event last year, so that I'm just not someone that showed up and started speaking to them. And there are also paid speaking engagements that you can actually pay to speak at certain events. I mean, that is an option. That's not something I'm planning to do quite yet, but it is something that you could do to get speaking engagements.
Yeah. Some other strategies I'd recommend, Cecily, and everything Nicole shared is so spot on. Is like getting in with these groups so you're recognized. But join their newsletter, because that's where they'll typically put out a call for papers first, so that you can be notified of when they put out their request for speakers. Also set like a Google alert for speaking opportunities, so that you can get like once a week a notification of opportunities that are aligned for you. And then another thing that I think really backs it up is like, it's really important for you to start solidifying like what are your core topics, because it's so daunting when these calls for papers come through, right? Because they're like, what are you going to talk about? And you have to like come up with a perfect pitch. And so like in advance, coming up with like 2 or 3, like these are my core, and typically like a call for papers, they're going to want a snappy title. They're going to want, a description of the session that's about a paragraph. And then they're going to want objectives, or like what will people walk away from this session with. And that's kind of standard every time you fill out something like that. So I really recommend that people come up with like 3 of their kind of go-to presentations so that it makes it really easy for you to submit out the gate. And then the other thing is to once you have those presentations in mind, write pieces of content that demonstrate in depth your expertise on it. Because what somebody's going to go out and do immediately in the vetting process is they're going to like go out to your website and they're going to look and see like, do you really know what you're talking about? And so if you have additional content, blog content, things that you've already written that in depth demonstrate your knowledge on those topics, people will feel like they can validate that you're going to be somebody who's going to show up with knowledge and expertise in that space. Yeah.
And network, find out who's on these planning committees.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Know them.
There's a lot of nepotism in speaker selection. I will be honest about that. So if you know people, it makes a difference. Yeah. I wanted to just share here and I'll put it in the chat if it's helpful to anyone. This is a little bit of an old resource, but I do a lot of work with folks in terms of developing client personas. And so here's just a link here. I'm going to make it so anyone with the link can view it. And this is a template. So my ask would be if you take this and use it to just duplicate it. But this is just a template that we developed over time. It's a little old, but just to help you think through some of that ideal client process. There's some things that are categories to think about: key attributes, somebody's belief systems, the areas they might push back. And it just gives some kind of bullet points that might be helpful in terms of building out personas. Because I think the biggest thing that's really important here is to get into the mind and mentality of the client. So hopefully that's helpful if anybody wants a little takeaway homework, so to speak. What other questions do we have for Nicole before we wrap? Anyone else? We probably have time for one more. Yeah.
No, this was good stuff.
Yeah, super helpful. Awesome. Well, the way we wrap up around here is we go away with key takeaways. So I'm going to put y'all on the spot just to get any key takeaways or things that really resonated for you. So Megan, you're right next to me, so you can go first. What would you say is a key takeaway?
I'm going to take up 2 because there's 2 things that really stuck with me and that I loved. I loved being validated for having more of a horizontal niching style than a vertical niching style. I love the idea of niching, but I can't work with just one industry. I'm going to get way too bored. And so I really love that validation. I also really love the thought of the 60-40 split. I don't know if a 60-40 split is right for me, but like that I can split, it's mind blowing to be given this kind of permission.
Mhm.
And I super appreciate it, which this sounds really silly in a lot of ways, and I realize that. But I super appreciate effectively being given permission to, even if you are niching down and forcing into a niche, that doesn't mean 100% of your activity has to be in a niche. And it does actually make your business more sustainable if it's not, because there's a few other things to pick up if all else goes to pot.
Mhm. Totally, totally. That's fantastic. Barbara, what about for you? What was a key takeaway?
Well, more so just confirmation for the 100th time that I really need to start implementing a lot of these ideas that support, being in a niche. I mentioned earlier in the chat that I do consider myself niche. I serve service-based industry, but that's debatable. Some people don't think that's really a niche. So yeah.
It's horizontal.
Huh?
It's
It's horizontal.
Mhm.
You know what? It has an inherent 60-40 split. But yeah, I think I just doing some of the things that I need to do that I said, just lives out there forever. But instead of burdening myself with getting those things done, I'm going to switch that burden to find the right help to help me get those things done.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. I think it's really important to remember, like, where can we not have to do it all? Where can we find, resources that can make us better and help us, get some of these things established? Cecily, what about for you?
It's just a good reminder. I mean, I do like the 60-40 split, just like having a number on that too, because we're kind of, I have a partner, my partner's kind of like, okay, now we're going to do this. Now we're going to do this. And that it is going to help to, we really have to nail down our plan. And coming back to the niche and just like, where are we going to focus our attention? Like, we only have a limited amount of time and resources, and where are we going to focus that and replicate that? So it's helpful.
I feel that there's only so much time in the day. Shannon, how about for you?
I just want to thank Nicole. This was a gold mine for me. I have never heard of horizontal niching, whatever niche. And that is exciting to me because I didn't realize maybe that was where I was gravitating. I like the 60-40 split. I also love the idea of the community build, because that's part of what my vision is having a community with my clients. In fact, I was thinking about changing, not calling them clients. I'm trying to come up with another term. I haven't quite figured it out yet. Yeah, I just want something so that it's like we're more like in this together. But I loved it all. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Oh, Megan offered something good. Look in the chat, patrons. That's cool.
Patrons. Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
Sherelle, what was your takeaway?
For me, probably the biggest one is the reminder to do a landing page specifically for the industry that I'm focusing on. It's one of those things that's on a list that I have somewhere, Barbara, that I don't even know what's on it anymore, but it's always there. And so it's just it was like I said I was going to do that like a while ago, and I still haven't done it. So that needs to be kind of the priority. That was probably my biggest takeaway, is to do that.
Awesome. And Lydia?
Well, I think I love the idea of the horizontal niche, because I'm definitely not in industry niche. I have more, I only work with QuickBooks Online clients, and I'm very focused on profit first and consulting with my clients. So it's not so much an industry specific. So that was very, like Megan said, very affirming and nice to say, okay, yeah, I am niching. I'm just niching differently than someone else. And just like the ideas of places to go to like see where your ideal client might be, like your podcasts and webinars and reminders to sponsor specific type of events. So if I'm looking at, small businesses, then look for small business expos where I can reach out to multiple types of small businesses and have something prepared for them and do those type of things. So just kind of really good ideas and a lot of stuff that I can put into my planning for this next year with my staff and figure out. So the admin will have a lot to do.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway, Nicole, what I really appreciated was just how tactical, like you gave us so many good, not just ideas, but action steps as well that everyone can take. And I think that's so fantastic, particularly in this season of the year that we're in, where it's like, it's a really good time to step back and reflect and strategize about where you want to take your firm next year. So for me, I loved all of the tactical elements of it. So thank you, Nicole. Are there
Thank
any
you, guys.
last things you want to offer us before we wrap up?
I just want to say that I don't want to sound cheesy, but I am. Like women run the world, right? Like you just got to believe in yourself. There's so much talk about having the imposter syndrome. And I tell you, when I started doing pharmacy accounting, I had serious imposter syndrome because I knew absolutely nothing. But you guys are all brilliant. You're intelligent. You've built a business so far, so there's nothing that you can't do. It's just you telling yourself you can't do it, and you're limiting yourself. So don't limit yourself. Like keep pushing. I always tell my friends, if your dreams aren't big enough, if your dreams don't scare you, they aren't big enough. So like keep dreaming, aim higher, reach for the stars. Like Barbara and Sherelle know me really well, and they know that my dreams are like whoosh, way out in outer space. But again, I like setting big audacious goals because it requires big steps. So.
Well, thank you, Nicole. Thank you. This was fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Great discussion today. I wish you all beautiful, beautiful weekend. Happy December. Happy holidays, y'all. Take care. We'll see you soon. All right.
Bye.
Bye.